Hades and Persephone, the queen beneath the earth, a Greek mythology ASMR bedtime story. Long before the world was filled with crowded cities, glowing screens, and roads that stretched endlessly beneath the sun, there was an older world, a world of quiet mountains, of forests that seemed to breathe in the night, of rivers that carried silver reflections of the moon, and of ancient gods who lived beyond the reach of ordinary human eyes. In those distant days, the seasons were not simply changes in weather. They were part of a story of love and loss, of darkness and light, of a mother searching for her daughter, and of a young goddess who became the mysterious queen of the world beneath the earth. Her name was Persephone, and beneath the earth, in a kingdom of shadows and silent rivers, lived Hades. This is their story, a story said to have begun in a meadow filled with flowers. The meadow beyond the world. There was once a valley so peaceful that even the wind seemed reluctant to disturb it. The valley lay far from the villages of mortals, hidden between green hills and ancient trees. Wild flowers grew everywhere, golden flowers, white flowers, blue flowers, and tiny purple blossoms that opened only when the morning mist began to disappear. At the center of the valley stood Persephone. She was young, gentle, and bright. She was the daughter of Demeter, goddess of the harvest and the fertile earth. Wherever Demeter walked, wheat grew tall. Wherever she placed her hand, the soil became rich. And because Persephone was her only daughter, Demeter loved her more deeply than anything else in the world. Persephone had grown up among flowers. She knew the language of the spring wind. She knew where the little birds built their nests. She knew which trees blossomed first after winter, and she loved wandering through the meadows alone. On one particular morning, the sky was soft and blue. The sun had only just begun its journey across the heavens. Persephone walked slowly through the meadow, gathering flowers into a small basket. She smiled whenever she discovered a flower she had never seen before. A butterfly rested briefly upon her shoulder. A white rabbit watched her from beneath a bush. Far away, birds sang from the branches of an olive tree. Everything seemed peaceful. Everything seemed eternal. But in the ancient world, nothing was truly eternal, not even spring. Persephone walked farther into the meadow. Then she saw something strange. A single flower stood apart from all the others. It was taller than the rest. Its petals were unusually beautiful, and it seemed to glow softly beneath the morning sun. Persephone stopped. She looked around. The meadow was completely silent. Even the birds had stopped singing. She stepped closer. The flower seemed to call to her, not with a voice, but with a feeling, a quiet invitation. Persephone reached out her hand. Her fingers touched the stem, and at that very moment, the earth beneath her feet trembled. A deep crack opened across the meadow. The flowers shook. The trees bent beneath an invisible wind, and from the darkness below came the sound of horses, black horses. Their hooves struck the earth like distant thunder. Persephone stepped backward, but before she could run, a magnificent chariot rose from beneath the earth. It was dark as midnight. Its wheels seemed to be made of shadow, and upon the chariot stood a powerful god. His face was solemn. His clothing was dark. His eyes carried the stillness of ancient caves. He was Hades, lord of the underworld, guardian of the realm where mortal souls traveled after death. He looked at Persephone, and Persephone looked at him. For a moment neither spoke. Then the earth opened wider. The chariot carried Persephone away, downward, into the darkness, and the meadow closed behind them. The kingdom beneath the earth. Far below the world of sunlight lay another kingdom. It was not a place of fire and endless suffering, as later stories sometimes imagined. It was quieter than that, much quieter. There were enormous halls carved from black stone. There were rivers that flowed beneath the earth. There were fields where pale flowers grew, and there were distant roads along which the spirits of the dead traveled. This was the kingdom of Hades, a kingdom without sunrise, a kingdom without birdsong, a kingdom where time moved slowly. The chariot descended deeper and deeper. Persephone watched the world above disappear. The golden sunlight became a distant memory. The green meadow vanished. The blue sky disappeared. And finally, there was only darkness. Hades brought Persephone into his great palace. Its doors were enormous. Its pillars rose like mountains. Silver lamps burned quietly along the walls, and everywhere there was silence. Persephone was frightened. She thought of her mother. She thought of the meadow. She thought of the flowers she had left behind. "Where are you taking me?" she asked. Hades looked at her. "To my kingdom," he answered. Persephone lowered her eyes. "I want to go home." Hades did not immediately reply. He was not a god who spoke often. He was accustomed to silence, to shadows, to the company of the dead. But Persephone was different from anything he had ever known. She carried the memory of spring with her, and somehow, even in the darkness of his kingdom, the world seemed less empty when she was near. Hades showed her the halls of his palace. He showed her the quiet gardens beneath the earth. He showed her a river whose surface reflected stars that did not exist in the sky above. And slowly, Persephone began to understand that the underworld was not simply a place of darkness. It was a place of endings, a place where everything that had finished its journey came to rest. Still, Persephone wanted her mother, and far above the earth, Demeter had begun to search. The Mother's Search. When Persephone disappeared, Demeter waited. At first, she thought her daughter had simply wandered too far. She called her name, Persephone. The wind carried the sound across the hills, but there was no answer. Demeter searched the meadow. She searched the forest. She searched the riverbanks. She asked the birds. She asked the shepherds. She asked the nymphs. But no one knew where Persephone had gone. Then Demeter began to fear. She carried 2 torches in her hands and walked through the world day and night. For 9 days and 9 nights, she searched. She did not sleep. She did not eat. She did not rest. She walked beneath the stars. She crossed mountains. She entered forests. She visited distant villages, but her daughter was nowhere. At last, the goddess Hecate heard Demeter's cries. Hecate approached her beneath the moonlight. "I heard a cry," she said, "a cry from the meadow, but I did not see who took your daughter." Together they went to Helios, the sun god who saw nearly everything beneath his journey across the sky. Demeter asked him what had happened. Helios was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke. "Your daughter has been taken beneath the earth." Demeter closed her eyes. "By whom?" "By Hades." The words struck her like thunder. Demeter turned away. Her grief became anger. And because Demeter was the goddess of the harvest, the earth began to suffer with her. The wheat stopped growing. The fields became dry. The flowers disappeared. The trees lost their leaves. The rivers grew cold. Across the world, people began to go hungry. Farmers looked at their empty fields. Villages became silent. Children asked why the crops would not grow. The world was slowly becoming a place without spring, and beneath the earth, Persephone began to discover that the underworld had secrets of its own. The Silent Garden. One evening, Persephone walked through the gardens of Hades. She had discovered that the palace contained a hidden garden. It was unlike any garden above the earth. There were trees with silver leaves, flowers that glowed faintly in the darkness, streams of clear water, and small white blossoms that opened only when the dead passed nearby. Persephone sat beside a quiet pool. She thought about her mother. She wondered whether Demeter was still searching for her. Then she heard footsteps. Hades approached. He stood at a distance. For a while neither spoke. Finally Persephone said, "Does anyone ever leave this place?" Hades looked toward the river. "Everyone eventually leaves the world above," he said, "but few return." Persephone was quiet. "You are lonely." Hades looked at her. Perhaps no one had ever said that to him before. He turned away. "I have my kingdom, but a kingdom can still be lonely," Persephone replied. Hades said nothing. That night, he left the garden, but the words remained with him. A kingdom can still be lonely. For the first time in many ages, Hades began to think about his own life. He had ruled the underworld for centuries. He had never asked anyone to understand him. He had never expected love. And now Persephone was there, a daughter of spring standing in the land of shadows. She was frightened of him. But she was also beginning to see that beneath his dark appearance was a god who had carried his loneliness for a very long time. The pomegranate. As the days passed, Persephone became familiar with the underworld. She learned the names of the rivers. She learned about the ancient judges who decided where souls would rest. She learned that Hades guarded the boundaries of his kingdom carefully. She learned that he was not cruel to the dead. He simply ruled a world that no one else wished to rule. And slowly, something changed. Persephone began to feel less afraid. She and Hades spoke more often. Sometimes they walked through the gardens. Sometimes they sat beside the river. Sometimes they simply listened to the silence. Hades eventually gave Persephone a small crown. It was made of dark metal and tiny silver stones. "This belongs to you," he said. Persephone touched it. "What does it mean?" "That you are honored here." She looked at him. "And what am I to you?" Hades was silent. Then he answered softly, "Someone I do not wish to lose." Persephone looked away. She still missed her mother, but she could not deny that something had begun to grow between herself and the lonely king. Not suddenly, not like a storm, but slowly. Like a seed beneath the earth. One day, Hades brought her a pomegranate. It was deep red, almost the color of sunset. Persephone held it in her hands. "You should eat," Hades said. She was hungry. She had eaten very little since arriving, so Persephone opened the fruit. Its seeds were bright and beautiful. She ate several. Neither of them knew that those small seeds would change the fate of the world, because in the ancient laws of the gods, food from the underworld could bind a person to the realm beneath the earth. Persephone ate 6 seeds, and with those 6 seeds, part of her destiny became connected forever to Hades. The world without spring. Above the earth, Demeter continued her search. The world was suffering. Fields had become barren. Fruit no longer grew. The air became cold. People prayed. They offered gifts. They called upon the gods. But Demeter would not allow the earth to bloom again until her daughter returned. Eventually, Zeus understood that the world could not continue this way. If the harvest failed completely, mortals would disappear, and without mortals, the gods would receive no prayers. So Zeus sent Hermes to the underworld. Hermes descended through the darkness. He crossed the silent rivers. He passed through the gates, and finally he entered the palace of Hades. There he found Persephone, seated beside the king. Hermes bowed. "Zeus has commanded that Persephone return to her mother." Persephone stood. She looked at Hades. For a moment, neither spoke. Hades knew he could not keep her forever. He knew that Demeter would never stop searching, and he knew that the world above was dying. So he nodded. "Go," he said. Persephone's eyes filled with tears. She had come to understand the strange quietness of his kingdom. She had come to understand him, and she knew that leaving would not be easy. But she had her mother waiting above. She had to go. Before Persephone left, Hades approached her. He did not ask her to stay. He simply held out his hand. She took it. For a brief moment, the king of darkness and the daughter of spring stood together beneath the earth. Then Persephone left. She traveled upward, toward the sunlight, toward her mother, toward the world she had once known. But because she had eaten 6 seeds of the underworld pomegranate, she could not remain above forever. The return of Persephone. When Persephone finally emerged from the earth, Demeter saw her. The goddess ran toward her daughter. They embraced. Demeter held Persephone tightly. She touched her daughter's face. She looked into her eyes. And for the first time in many months, Demeter smiled. The earth responded immediately. Flowers opened, trees became green, the fields began to breathe again. Birds returned, rivers warmed, the world remembered spring. But Demeter soon learned about the pomegranate. She understood that Persephone could not remain above forever. She turned to Zeus. "What will happen to my daughter?" Zeus considered the matter. At last a compromise was made. Persephone would spend part of the year with her mother in the world above. During those months, Demeter would be joyful, the earth would bloom, flowers would grow, the fields would become green. But when Persephone returned to Hades, Demeter would grieve, the earth would become quiet, leaves would fall, the air would grow cold. Thus the seasons were born. Spring came when Persephone returned, summer followed her footsteps, autumn arrived when she prepared to leave, and winter came when she descended once more into the underworld. The Queen of the Underworld. The first time Persephone returned to Hades after the agreement, she was different. She was no longer simply the young goddess who had wandered through a meadow. She had changed. She had seen death. She had seen darkness. She had learned that even the shadows had their own beauty. When she entered the palace, Hades was waiting. He did not know what she would say. Perhaps she would hate him. Perhaps she would never forgive him. But Persephone walked toward him. In her hand she carried a small flower, a flower from the world above. She placed it beside him. "I brought you spring," she said. Hades looked at the flower. For a long time he said nothing. Then he smiled. It was a rare smile, almost invisible, but Persephone saw it. From that day forward, Persephone became queen of the underworld. She was no longer a prisoner. She was a ruler. She sat beside Hades upon the dark throne, and she learned how to guide the dead with wisdom and compassion. The souls who entered the underworld soon came to know her. Some remembered her as the gentle goddess of spring. Others knew her as the powerful queen of the dead, and somehow both were true. She carried spring within herself, but she also understood darkness. She knew that life could not exist without death, and that beginnings could not exist without endings. The seasons. Every year, the same ancient story repeated itself. When Persephone returned to the world above, Demeter welcomed her. The first flowers opened, then the trees became green, then the fields filled with grain. Birds returned to the forests. Rivers became bright beneath the sun. Mortals planted their crops. Children played among the flowers. The world became warm again. But eventually, the time came for Persephone to leave. The days became shorter. The wind grew colder. The leaves changed color. And Demeter knew that her daughter would soon return beneath the earth. On the day of departure, mother and daughter would embrace. Demeter would tell Persephone to return safely. Persephone would promise that she would. Then she would descend, down through the earth, past the silent rivers, past the gates, into the kingdom where Hades waited. And when Persephone entered the palace, she would once again place the crown upon her head. The queen of the underworld had returned, and above her, winter would begin. A love between two worlds. The story of Hades and Persephone is often remembered as a story of darkness and light, but perhaps it is something more. It is the story of two worlds that could never completely become one. Hades belonged to the earth beneath. Persephone belonged to the world above. Yet somehow, their lives became connected. Hades learned from Persephone that darkness did not have to mean loneliness. Persephone learned from Hades that the shadows were not always something to fear, and together they created a balance. Life needed death, spring needed winter, light needed darkness, and love perhaps needed understanding. The ancient Greeks looked at the changing seasons and saw this story written across the earth. When the flowers opened, Persephone had returned. When the leaves fell, she had gone below. When the fields became quiet beneath winter's breath, she was once again beside Hades. And when spring arrived, she would return. Again. and again, forever. The Quiet Kingdom. Imagine now that the ancient world has grown quiet. The moon hangs above the mountains. The forests sleep beneath silver light. A cool wind moves through the olive trees. Far below the earth, the underworld is peaceful. There are no battles, no shouting, only the sound of distant water. The river Styx flows slowly. The lamps of Hades' palace burn with a gentle glow. Persephone sits beside the throne. Her crown rests upon her dark hair. Hades stands near the great doors. Beyond them, the kingdom stretches into silence. He looks toward Persephone. She looks back. Neither needs to speak. They have learned that some feelings are too old for words. The underworld is no longer completely dark because Persephone has brought a little spring into it, and the world above is no longer completely separate from the underworld. Because every winter carries the memory of what lies beneath. The seasons continue, the earth continues, the stars continue, and the ancient gods remain in the stories of those who still remember them. The last flower. There is an old image that can be imagined at the heart of this story. A single flower growing in darkness. No sunlight touches it, no rain falls upon it, yet it blooms. Perhaps that flower belongs to Persephone. Perhaps it represents the strange beauty of life. Because even in darkness, something can grow. Even after loss, something can return. Even after winter, spring can come again, and perhaps that is why the story survived for thousands of years. People looked at the cold months and wondered why the earth seemed to die. Then they watched the first flowers return, and they remembered Persephone. They imagined her walking once again through the fields, her footsteps waking the sleeping earth, her laughter carried by the warm wind, her mother waiting beneath the sunlight, and far below, Hades watching patiently, knowing that she would return, knowing that every separation was temporary, knowing that spring would always come again. Beneath the moonlight, now imagine the ancient Greek world one final time. The mountains are covered in moonlight, the sea is completely still. A few stars shine above the horizon, the temples are silent, the villages are sleeping, and beneath the earth, Persephone walks beside Hades. They move through the quiet garden. Silver flowers open as they pass. The river whispers beside them. There is no fear here, no hurry, only silence. Hades reaches toward a small flower. He touches its petals. Persephone smiles. Spring will come soon, she says. Hades looks toward her. I know. Above them, somewhere beyond the mountains, the first flowers are beginning to open. The earth is waking. Demeter is smiling. The birds are returning, and Persephone knows that soon she must leave again. But she is no longer afraid of leaving, because she knows that she will return, and Hades knows that he will wait. The ancient cycle continues, as it always has, as it always will. Epilogue. The queen who belonged to both worlds. And so, the story of Hades and Persephone became one of the oldest stories ever told, a story whispered beside ancient fires, a story told by travelers beneath the stars, a story remembered by farmers waiting for spring, a story carried across generations. Persephone became the goddess who belonged to two worlds. She was the daughter of Demeter, the bringer of spring, the queen of the underworld, the companion of Hades, and Hades remained the quiet king beneath the earth. He ruled over a kingdom that mortals feared. But beside Persephone, even that kingdom seemed less cold. Perhaps this is the true meaning hidden inside the old myth, that darkness is not always the enemy of light. Sometimes darkness is simply another part of the world. Sometimes winter is not the end, it is only a pause. Sometimes goodbye is not forever, and sometimes the deepest love is found in the quiet places where no one else is looking. So when the first flower appears after a long winter, remember Persephone. When autumn leaves begin to fall, remember her journey. And when the nights grow long, and the earth becomes silent. Imagine the ancient kingdom beneath the ground. Imagine a great palace of dark stone. Imagine silver lamps glowing beside a quiet river, and imagine Persephone sitting beside Hades upon the throne, the queen of the underworld, the daughter of spring, the goddess who walks between two worlds. Above them, the stars continue to shine. Below them, the rivers continue to flow. And somewhere between darkness and light, the ancient story continues, quietly, peacefully, forever. And now, the story is ending. The mountains are silent, the sea is sleeping, the forests are still, the ancient temples stand beneath the moon, the flowers close their petals, and beneath the earth, Persephone rests beside Hades. There is no war, no fear, no sorrow, only the quiet sound of the eternal world turning. Winter will pass, spring will return, and everything that is lost will one day find its way home. So close your eyes, listen to the quiet. Imagine the ancient world beneath the stars, and let the story of Hades and Persephone slowly disappear into the darkness like a dream remembered only for a moment, before sleep carries you somewhere peaceful, somewhere beyond the mountains, beyond the sea, beyond the world of waking, into the quiet kingdom of dreams. Good night, and may your dreams be gentle.